The Kaivalya Upanishad teaches that, well, renunciation, meditation, and devotion are the direct path to Kaivalya.
Right, which means absolute liberation.
Exactly, absolute liberation. Today, we're exploring how this really profound text reveals the self as pure consciousness, far beyond the dualities and the constant friction of everyday life.
It's a fascinating journey.
It really is. Before we begin, please make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share your own reflections in the comments below. Today's deep dive is focusing entirely on the translation of the Kaivalya Upanishad that we found in the 108 Upanishads source document.
Yeah, and it's considered one of the minor Upanishads, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that classification really just refers to its length, not its impact.
Yeah.
I mean, it is intensely focused on the actual mechanic of liberation.
Doesn't waste any time.
No, it doesn't. It basically argues that devotion, meditation, and knowledge of the self aren't like separate disciplines that you practice on different days of the week. They're a unified means to absolute freedom.
What I love about it is how it dispenses with a lot of the mythological world building you find in older, more sweeping Vedic texts.
For sure.
It just gets straight to the underlying architecture of human consciousness. And it offers a highly specific methodology for dismantling the illusions that cause us to suffer.
Right. So to understand the destination of absolute freedom, we first need to look at how the journey begins and what is actually required to walk the path.
The prerequisites, basically.
Exactly. So the Upanishad opens with a seeker named Ashvalayana approaching the creator deity, Lord Paramesti, or Brahma.
And he doesn't ask a small question?
Not at all. Ashvalayana asks for the highest knowledge of Brahman. He wants the knowledge cultivated by the wise to instantly drive away sins and reach the highest supreme being, the Purusha.
Which is a bold ask right out of the gate.
Right. And Brahma's answer sets the rule for literally everything that follows. He tells him that immortality is not attained by work, nor by progeny, nor by wealth.
That's a heavy statement.
It is. He says it is attained by renunciation, faith, devotion, and meditation. Listen closely to this teaching on renunciation and meditation as it sets the foundation for the entire path to freedom.
What's fascinating here is how the text immediately just dismantles our normal societal measures of success. I mean, it attacks the very things human beings have spent millennia optimizing.
Yeah, the things we build our whole lives around.
Exactly. We structure our entire lives around work to gain status, progeny to leave a legacy, and wealth to secure our survival.
Right.
And the Upanishad categorically states that these pursuits, no matter how perfectly executed, they cannot cross the threshold into immortality.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it is a massive roadblock for the modern mind.
Oh, absolutely.
We are conditioned to believe that our value is inextricably linked to our output, right? Like if you tell someone driving to their 9-to-5 job that their work, their savings account, and their family legacy are functionally useless for ultimate freedom, the immediate reaction is defensive.
Oh, of course it is. It sounds dismissive.
It feels like the text is telling us to just abandon our lives, walk into the forest, and do nothing. Is that the demand here? I mean, is the text saying our daily lives and jobs don't matter at all?
Well, that is the perpetual danger of interpreting Eastern philosophy through a purely literal, material lens. The Sanskrit concept at play here is sannyasa, which is translated as renunciation.
Right, renunciation.
But the mistake is equating renunciation with physical poverty or the abdication of duty. It's actually pointing to a psychological mechanism.
Okay, so it's internal.
Exactly. It is the mental release of clinging to the fruits of your work, progeny, and wealth. You could theoretically be a billionaire running a massive enterprise with a large family and still be practicing renunciation.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Well, if your core identity is not tethered to those things, if you don't derive your ultimate sense of self from your bank account or your job title.
Okay, I see. So the burden isn't the wealth itself, it's the attachment to the wealth. It's like carrying a heavy 100-pound backpack up a sheer cliff face. And inside the backpack are bricks labeled career, social status, and financial security.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, like the bricks aren't the problem. The fact that you refuse to put the backpack down while trying to climb is the problem. You physically cannot ascend to higher states of consciousness if you are weighed down by the fear of losing your earthly identity.
That analogy captures the mechanics perfectly. Because if a market crash wipes out your wealth and your sense of self shatters along with it, that reveals your attachment.
Oh, wow.
Or if you retire and suddenly feel like you no longer exist because you don't have a job title anymore, you were attached. True knowledge requires an unburdened mind.
So Brahma is telling Ashvalayana that you cannot pour the infinite into a vessel that is already overflowing with worldly anxieties.
Exactly. The act of renunciation empties the vessel, and only then can it be filled with faith, devotion, and meditation.
Which brings us to the actual practice. Once the vessel is empty, where do we direct our focus?
The text is actually surprisingly practical here.
It really is. The Upanishad pivots from the philosophical prerequisite to highly specific physical and mental instructions. It outlines the physical setup.
Finding a secluded place, right?
Yeah, finding a secluded place, sitting in an easy posture, remaining pure with the neck, head, and body perfectly erect.
That posture is key.
It is, and I want to tell you, the listener, right now, listen closely to this instruction to meditate on the self as dwelling right in the heart, moving your awareness beyond the distractions of the physical body and the anxious mind.
You know, the physical instructions here are not arbitrary rituals. They are biomechanical necessities for what the text is trying to achieve.
How so? Like, why the perfectly erect spine?
Well, keeping the neck, head, and body perfectly erect aligns the nervous system. It allows the body to remain incredibly still and relaxed without crossing over into sleep.
Oh, so you don't just nod off.
Right. It creates a state of suspended physical animation, basically, so the mind can draw its energy inward instead of constantly managing the body.
I want to focus on that inward movement, because the text explicitly says to meditate within the lotus of the heart on Brahman.
Yes, the Hridaya.
And it describes this center as untainted, pure, clear, and griefless. Now, obviously, it's not talking about the biological organ pumping blood.
No, definitely not.
But why the heart? Why not the brain, which is where we usually feel like our consciousness is located?
In the Vedic tradition, the spiritual heart is considered the absolute center of one's conscious being. The brain is associated with the frantic, calculating mind.
The part of us that worries about the work and the wealth we just discussed.
Exactly. The lotus of the heart represents the seat of the soul, the core observer. When the text instructs you to meditate there, it is telling you to pull your scattered attention away from your sensory organs.
Like away from the endless loop of thoughts in your head.
Right, and just sink it down into the silent center of your being.
So think of the mind like a shaken snow globe.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the swirling fake snow represents our sensory inputs, our memories, our anxieties about tomorrow. As long as we are identifying with the snow, we are caught in the turbulence.
You're just spinning around with it all.
Right. So sitting in that easy, erect posture is the act of putting the snow globe down on a table. You don't try to force the snow to the bottom.
In other words, just shake it more.
Exactly. You just sit still until the turbulence naturally settles. And when the water clears, the text says you find something griefless.
Notice the implication of that specific word, griefless. It suggests that grief, anxiety, and fear are not fundamental to who we are.
They are the swirling snow.
Right. The core itself is inherently pure and untouched by sorrow. You aren't meditating to construct a peaceful state from scratch.
Oh, that's a huge distinction.
It is. You are meditating to uncover the peace that is already functioning as your foundation.
So the snow settles, we look into the lotus of the heart. What exactly do we see?
Well, the text gives a pretty expansive description.
It does. It describes the Supreme Lord found within as unthinkable, unmanifest, of endless forms, peaceful, immortal, and without beginning, middle, or end.
But then it takes it a step further.
Yeah, it makes a radical unifying claim. It says, this reality is Brahma, Shiva, Indra, Vishnu, Prana, time, fire, and the moon. It is all that was and will be.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this passage is an absolute masterclass in dissolving sectarianism.
Because at the time, people were very divided, right?
Extremely. In the ancient world, people divided themselves based on the specific form of the divine they worshipped. My God versus your God.
Right.
The Kaivalya Upanishad cuts right through that tribalism. It asserts that all specific deities, all elements of nature, and even the abstract concept of time itself are merely different facets of the exact same single self-luminous reality.
Which fundamentally changes the goal of the seeker. I mean, you aren't trying to contact an external entity sitting on a cloud somewhere.
No, the direction is entirely inward.
The text states that the crucial realization is seeing the Atman, the self, in all beings, and all beings in the Atman.
Yes. But, recognizing that conceptually is entirely different from experiencing it.
It's the difference between reading a menu and eating the meal.
Exactly. And this is why the Upanishad introduces the practice of the Arani. It provides a sort of technological metaphor for how to actually achieve this realization.
Let's define Arani for the listener. An Arani is an ancient tool used to kindle sacred fire by rubbing two pieces of wood together, right?
Correct. It's a friction fire tool.
So the text says, to make the Atman your own soul, the lower piece of wood, and the syllable OM, the upper piece.
And then?
By the repeated friction of knowledge, a wise man burns up the bond. Let's really look at this metaphor. Why is it described as friction?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right, because friction implies resistance. It implies heat and effort. If the core of my being is already peaceful and griefless, like we just said, why do I have to generate spiritual friction to experience it?
Because the mind's habit of clinging to the external world is incredibly dense. I mean, your default state is to identify with your thoughts and your body.
It's all we've ever known.
Exactly. Breaking that habit requires immense, sustained effort. The chanting of OM is not just some passive, relaxing exercise here. It is an active intervention.
Okay, so it's work.
Hard work.
Yeah.
Every time your mind wanders to your anxieties and you drag it back to the vibration of OM, you are generating psychological friction. You are rubbing the upper stick of the mantra against the lower stick of your awareness.
You are actively denying the ego its normal food. Like the ego wants to ruminate on the argument you had yesterday or plan what you're going to eat for dinner.
It loves that stuff.
It thrives on it. So bringing the mind back to OM denies the ego that traction. That denial is the resistance. It's like building a muscle. The muscle only grows when it works against gravity.
Exactly. And over time, that repeated effort generates a spiritual heat, which is known in Sanskrit as tapas. Yes. And this heat literally incinerates the deep-rooted bonds of ignorance. You burn away the false assumption that you are just the physical body.
But, okay, that begs a massive question.
Go for it.
If my true nature is this grand universal consciousness, if I am the same substance as time and fire and the supreme deities, why am I so thoroughly convinced that I am just a person struggling to get through the week?
It's the ultimate paradox.
Right. How did I get so entangled in these bonds of ignorance in the first place?
Well, the Upanishad answers this by introducing the mechanics of human delusion. It explains that the jiva, the individual soul, is deluded by Maya.
And Maya is the illusion of a fragmented reality, right?
Correct. Because of Maya, consciousness identifies completely with the physical body and sports in what the text calls the three cities of illusion.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because these three cities are not like mythological places you have to travel to.
No, you visit them every single day.
Exactly. They are the three states of consciousness that every single human being cycles through every 24 hours. Waking, dreaming, and profound sleep.
It's a brilliant framework.
It really is. The text breaks down exactly how we are trapped in each one. Let's start with the first city, the waking state. The text says the individual soul attains satisfaction through varied objects of enjoyment, like food, drink, and sensory experiences.
This is our consensus reality. In the waking state, consciousness is projected outward through the five senses.
So we're constantly looking outside ourselves.
Totally. We inherently believe that fulfillment lies somewhere in the external environment. We think, if I consume this food or achieve this status or acquire this object, I will be complete. The jiva is completely captured by the pursuit of external stimuli.
Then we move to the second city, the dream state. The text describes this as a sphere of existence entirely created by the soul's own ignorance, where it feels pleasure and pain.
The dream state is critical for understanding Maya.
Why is that?
Think about the mechanics of a nightmare. You are running from a tiger. Your heart is racing, you feel genuine terror, and the ground under your feet feels entirely solid.
It feels 100% real in the moment.
Exactly. The tiger and the terror are completely real to the mind experiencing them. Yet the physical body is lying motionless in a dark room.
Right.
The entire environment is a projection of the mind. The Upanishad is asking us to consider that the waking state operates on a similar, albeit more stable, mechanism of projection.
So it equates our daily hustle for food and wealth with the illusions of a dream.
Yes.
Like when you wake up from a nightmare, the tiger vanishes, and you realize you were never actually in danger. The Upanishad is implying that spiritual awakening is the process of waking up from the waking state.
That's a perfect way to put it.
You realize the threats to your ego in the waking world are just as illusory as the dream tiger.
Which brings us to the third city, profound, dreamless sleep.
The one we all crave.
Right. The text states that in this state, everything is dissolved. The soul is overpowered by tamas, which means darkness or inertia, and exists in a form of unmanifest bliss.
Okay, I want to push on this a bit.
Sure.
If profound sleep is overpowered by tamas, which usually carries a kind of negative connotation of ignorance or dullness, why does the text also describe it as unmanifest bliss?
Because in deep sleep, the ego temporarily shuts down completely.
Oh, the friction is gone.
Exactly. The friction of desiring objects in the waking world is gone. The friction of projecting realities in the dream world is gone. The mind collapses back into its source.
So there's no suffering.
There is no you to suffer. The bliss of deep sleep is the bliss of non-duality. There is no separation between subject and object.
But it's overpowered by tamas.
Yes, because you are not aware of this bliss while it's happening.
Yeah.
You are unconscious. You only recognize it in retrospect when you wake up and think, man, I slept peacefully.
Right. So we spend our entire lives migrating endlessly between these three cities. We chase things in the waking world, project things in the dream world, and collapse into ignorant bliss in the sleeping world.
It's an exhausting cycle.
It really is. So if I am not the waking persona, and I am not the dreaming avatar, and I am not the unconscious sleeper, who am I?
The text provides the synthesis here. It says that from the Supreme springs all diversity. He is the substratum, the indivisible consciousness, in whom all three of these cities ultimately dissolve.
Let's use the analogy of a movie theater to grasp this idea of the substratum.
I love this analogy.
Yeah, so human experience is like sitting in a cinema. In the waking state, a highly detailed documentary is playing on the screen. In the dream state, an abstract fantasy film is playing.
And in deep sleep.
In deep sleep, the projector is turned off and the screen is just blank in the dark. We spend our lives identifying with the characters in the films.
Right.
We think we are the person in the documentary or the hero in the fantasy.
But we aren't.
Right. The text is arguing that we are actually the screen itself. The screen never changes. It is never burned by an explosion in the movie, and it doesn't disappear when the theater goes dark.
The screen is the witness, the indivisible consciousness. And recognizing that is really the fulcrum of the entire Upanishad.
It leads to the grand declaration in verses 15 through 19. It explains that from this, the Supreme springs all vitality, or prana.
Everything comes from it.
Yeah, from this source springs the mind, the sensory organs, the sky, the air, fire, water, and the earth. But the real culmination is the declaration, that which is the Supreme Brahman, subtler than the subtle and eternal that is thyself, and thou art that.
Thou art that. It is a staggering claim.
It's massive.
It means the macrocosm and the microcosm are identical. The awareness looking out through your eyes right now is the exact same awareness that sustains the universe.
And the text drives this home by making a critical distinction about our relationship to experience. It says, what constitute the enjoyable, the enjoyer, and the enjoyment in the three abodes different from them all, am I the witness?
This breaks down the triad of human experience beautifully. Let's take a really simple action, like drinking a cup of coffee.
Okay, my favorite action.
Right. So you have the coffee itself, which is the enjoyable object. You have the ego, the specific person who desires the coffee, which is the enjoyer. And you have the biological sensation of caffeine and warmth, which is the enjoyment.
So we have the enjoyable, the enjoyer, and the enjoyment.
Exactly. And we are utterly trapped in this triad. We think we are the enjoyer trying to consume the enjoyable.
But the realization of the Upanishad severs that identification entirely. It says, I am different from them all. I am not the coffee, I am not the person drinking it, and I am not the pleasure it brings.
You are the silent witness illuminating the entire event.
This raises an important question, though. How does this shift in identity change our relationship to suffering? Like, if we realize we are merely the witness, what happens to pain or anxiety?
That's the real practical application here.
Because, I mean, if I am the witness, then when severe anxiety hits, I am no longer an anxious person. I am the conscious space in which the physiological sensations of anxiety are appearing.
Yes, and that distinction is the essence of liberation. The physical or emotional pain might still be present. The heart might race, the chest might tighten, but the suffering evaporates.
Wait, how does the suffering evaporate if the pain is still there?
Because suffering requires an ego. It requires a mind to say, this is happening to me and I hate it, I need it to stop. The witness doesn't judge the anxiety, it merely observes it.
Like the sky.
Exactly, the sky doesn't suffer because a thunderstorm passes through it. By resting as the pure consciousness, the bonds of Maya just lose their grip entirely.
Which brings us to the final verses of the Upanishad, where the text attempts to describe what it actually feels like to live in this state of absolute freedom, or Kaivalya.
And it really pushes language to its limits here.
It does. It resorts to wild cosmic paradoxes to explain it. The realized being declares, I am minuter than the minute, I am likewise the greatest of all. It says, without arms and legs am I. I see without eyes, and I hear without ears.
It resorts to paradox because language is a tool designed to describe the limits of the waking state.
Right. It's designed for the three cities.
Exactly. How do you describe a state of non-locality using words that require spatial coordinates? When the text says, I see without eyes, it means that pure consciousness is the prerequisite for all perception.
You don't need physical eyes to be aware because you are the light of awareness itself.
Precisely. You are smaller than an atom because you are the subtle essence of reality, but you are larger than the universe because the entire universe appears within your awareness.
It pushes further into this absolute detachment, stating, for me, there is neither merit nor demerit. I suffer no destruction. I have no birth, nor any self-identity with the body and the organs.
That's a profound level of freedom.
It is, but I want to challenge that phrase, neither merit nor demerit.
I had a feeling you would.
Well, it's dangerous, isn't it? If a realized being operates completely beyond the concepts of good karma and bad karma, doesn't that give someone a philosophical free pass to act terribly in the waking world? How does this not lead to destructive nihilism?
That is a crucial challenge. And it's a trap many fall into when studying non-duality.
The nothing matters so I can do what I want trap.
Exactly. But the absence of merit and demerit does not mean a realized being is capable of cruelty. Cruelty, greed, and malice require an ego.
They require a sense of separation.
Right. They require a mind that feels separate from others and needs to defend itself or take from others to feel complete. A realized being sees the self in all beings.
So it would be like hurting yourself?
Exactly. You would not intentionally burn your own hand. Similarly, a being who has reached Kaivalya cannot intentionally harm another because they recognize the other as themselves.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
They generate no merit or demerit because their actions are entirely spontaneous and devoid of selfish motive. The karma simply doesn't stick to the witness.
That's beautiful. And I want to tell you, listening right now, take a deep breath and listen for this final declaration. The assurance that this specific knowledge of the self destroys the ocean of repeated transmigration and leads directly to Kaivalya, absolute freedom.
Let's define Kaivalya within the context of our translation, to be precise.
Yeah, do.
It means absolute independence or emancipation. Sometimes it is translated as aloneness, but that often implies isolation, which is wrong.
It's not lonely.
No, it isn't aloneness in the sense that there is literally nothing else but Brahman. When you realize you are, that there is no other to threaten you, no other to desire, and no other to fear.
You are completely independent of the three cities of illusion.
Exactly. This is the culmination of the knowledge Ashvalayana requested from Brahma in the very first verse.
These verses paint a reality that feels almost unimaginably vast. But, we have to ground this. How does this ancient Sanskrit text resonate with our lives today?
It's a fair question.
For the person listening to this right now while commuting to work or doing the dishes, what does this all mean for you and me?
The relevance is profound, precisely because the modern world is an absolute masterclass in distraction.
Ain't that the truth?
We are constantly pulled outward by technology, by work, by the demands of the waking state. The Upanishad inspires seekers today to find a practical balance between devotion, meditation, and detachment in their daily lives.
It offers a method to survive the chaos without being consumed by it.
Right. We don't have to quit our jobs or leave our families. The renunciation is internal.
We just have to cultivate the habit of recognizing the three cities.
Exactly. When you are stressed at work, you remind yourself, this is the friction of the waking state. I am the witness of this stress, not the victim of it.
So you can still perform your job with excellence, but you remove the existential dread from the equation.
You participate in the movie of your life with skill and engagement, but you retain the quiet knowing that you are just the light illuminating the screen.
That internal focus provides a radical resilience against the inevitable pain of human existence.
It really does. It's absolute freedom right in the middle of everyday life.
Through renunciation, meditation, and devotion, the self is realized as Brahman leading to the Kaivalya, absolute freedom. That is the core takeaway of this text.
Beautifully summarized.
If you found value in this deep dive, please subscribe, like the video, and drop your reflections in the comments. We genuinely want to know what stood out to you. Was it the metaphor of the three cities, or maybe the idea of generating spiritual friction with the Arani? Let us know.
And, this is just one perspective. The Vedic corpus is incredibly vast, and examining it from different angles only sharpens our understanding.
Absolutely. So be sure to join us for upcoming deep dives on other Upanishads as we continue this journey of simplified awakening. I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to ponder today.
Well, I like these.
If the Supreme Self is exactly what you are right now, simply playing the roles of waking, dreaming, and sleeping, what changes in your life tomorrow if you finally decide to just be the witness to the play? Think about it. See you next time.